Greetings to everyone. I am Rica Martin. We are the Group 9 and yung lesson namin is about staffing and organizational structures. Here are the learning outcomes. So first, identify the need for appropriate structures, identify the principles of management which affect staffing, better understanding of organization and staffing structures, better understanding of employment of staff and legislation, become knowledgeable about staff selection and recruitment, staff appraisal and staff handbook. And last, know the guidelines for facility, staffing, and structure. So, ito yung mga mas matututunan pa natin, mas maintindihan after namin na mag-report. So, before we can officially start sa aming discussion, pumili lang kami ng Bible verse na pwede dito before sa pag-i-start ng report namin. So, sabi sa 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, and who correctly handles the word of truth. So, sa mga perception pa ng iba, marami pa itong pwedeng maging ibang meaning yung dating sa kanila. So, para lang sa amin, sinasabi dito na dapat daw natin gawin yung best natin palagi so we can be perfect. Kasi sabi nga, we must be perfect as our God is perfect. Pero alam ko dito sa ating makamundong lugar, mundo ng mga tao, wala naman talagang perfect eh. Kaya nga dapat nagre-repent tayo para to go back on the good path and which is yung path na papunta kay God. So, for example, ngayon na may new learning in education dahil nga may pandemic. So, yung iba talaga sa atin, masyado nating nakikita yung mga bahay natin na masyadong comfortable para mag-aaral. So, ang ending, kapag may exam or kaya mga quizzes, nakarely minsan tayo on notes. So, minsan, di ba, hindi talaga may iwasan. So, alam naman natin sa sarili natin na mali iyon. So, ang gagawin natin yung best natin para maiwasan yung mga mali na yun. So, sa introduction, sinasabi na yung excellent staff ay kasing importante ng mga excellent facilities. So, hindi lang dapat facilities yung pagbibigyan ng pansin. Lalo na sa industry natin, sa tourism and hospitality industry, sobrang importante ng mga skilled staff, mga professional staff, yung sobrang natitrained na mga staff para magkaroon ng high quality service. Kasi alam natin na pagka high quality service, makakapagbigay siya ng customer satisfaction. And pwede pa nga ma-exceed kasi yung ma-exceed mo yung expectation and standard ng customer kasi meron kang excellent staff. So kahit sa ibang sector din or ibang industry din, ganun din, kailangan din nila ng mga excellent staff. Kaya yung mga senior professionals, nakalagay dito, and yung mga managers, dapat may knowledge sila and experience and understanding of staff matters like the selection, staff relation, staff motivation, organizational structures, and so on. So later on, mas madidiscuss pa ito ng iba naming members. Next is the staff. Ang sabi lang dito, whether full-time or part-time or voluntary, ay most important resource in any leisure organization. So kasi sa industry natin, yung provision ng services talaga is sobrang importante. Yung human component is sobrang importante sa provision ng service sa industry natin. Kasi 'di ba, kung naalala niyo, meron tayong high touch and high tech. So yung high tech more on mga labor force siya. So yung high tech naman, high touch more on labor force, high tech more on technology, yung paggamit ng mga advanced technology. So para sa akin, 'di ba, mas naibibigay ng in high quality yung service kapag tao mismo yung nagpo-provide. So sobrang importante ng mga staff kahit na full-time pa yan or part-time or temporary lang, yung mga ganon, yung mga voluntary. Sobrang importante sa isang leisure organization. Next is the organization structure. So, organization structure is actually a list from the highest rank to lower rank. So, ito yung nagpo-provide ng limits sa mga higher rank kung hanggang saan lang sila dapat. Kasi may mga cases tayo na kahit na hindi naman na nila sakop, yung control is parang gusto pa rin nilang kino-control or sinusupervise. So, itong sa organization structure, it represents the way in which the work is organized and shared out and the manner in which enterprise is managed. So, organized na siya. So, parang ito na yung pagbabasehan nilang organization structure, ito yung mag-a-assist sa kanila para magkaroon ng high level of success in the management. So usually kasi kapag hindi maayos yung management or yung organization, 'di ba? Nagkakaroon ng mga departmental jealousies and territoriality. And those are the roadblocks to communication. Sa isang firm pa naman is sobrang importante ng departmental communication para magkaroon ng smooth flow of process, 'di ba? So the way in which staff are selected, employed, organized, and treated are crucial factors daw in the performance and level of success of management. So, dahil sobrang importante ng excellent staff, dapat yung selection and yung employment din ng staff ay pagtutuunan din ng pansin. Hindi lang siya basta-basta mag-employed and or magsaselect ng staff, yung mga managers or yung management, gano'n. Kasi yung performance ng staff, ina-identify niya if magiging low level of success or kaya high level of success sa isang management. Next is the need for appropriate structure. So, yung mga staffing structure, types of staff, and levels of staffing in leisure ay from the authority to authority, organization to organization, and from center to center. Kahit na yung facilities nila ay almost the same and kahit yung policies nila ay parang related to each other, ay magkakaiba sila. So, they vary. And, pero sa public recreation daw, na which is owned or run by the local government administrative, you can expect na uniform ang kanilang staffing structure, meaning invariant or walang pagkakaiba. But sa mga different localities na merong iba-ibang facilities and iba-ibang conditions and events, it is understandable that variations exist. Next, ito, mas lang siya, mas pinalawak, in-explain lang lalo yung kung ano ba ang staff. So, ang staff within the same organization ay magkakaiba. From full-time to part-time, temporary, casual, and voluntary. So, magkakaiba sila. Kahit nasabihan na they are in the same organization. So, example ito, hindi ko na siya babasahin kasi nakikita niyo naman na siya. So, example na lang, itong recreation executive and yung mga senior, middle, and line managers, pwede silang mga full-time kasi usually, itong mga higher rank na to. So, full-time talaga mga official worker. And itong mga temporary, pwedeng maging, for example, itong artist, pwedeng maging temporary lang siya doon sa isang organization. And yung mga voluntary, pwedeng mga community workers, yung mga youth workers. So, yun ang example. Kahit na nasa isang organization sila, nagkakaiba-iba sila, iba-iba sila ng roles. So, sabi nga dito, staff have variations in contracts of employment. So, dahil may full-time, temporary, iba-iba sila ng mga kontrata. So, mas matagal syempre ang mga full-time kaysa sa mga temporary. So, ganun din sa job description. Iba-iba sila ng roles, ng duties, and responsibilities. Kaya magkakaiba na sila ng job description. And also, kapag ka full-time ka, mas matagal ang iyong training and mas malaki ang benefits. Kapag ka mga temporary lang, hindi naman ganun kahirap ang training and hindi rin naman ganun, usually iba nga wala pang benefits, di ba? So, iba-iba din sila ng working hours and shift and yung iba sa kanila umaabot ng mga unsocial hours. So, next, sinasabi lang naman dito na costly rin sa isang organization ang staffing, especially yung mga malalaking firm. Kasi, di ba, kapag madami ka nga namang staff, is malaki din yung lalabas na pera sa'yo kasi marami kang pasasahurin. Kaya, yung reduction in staff, nakakatulong talaga siya para mag-reduce ng deficits and mag-increase ng net returns. Next, sinasabi lang na yung organizations that fail to demonstrate value and cost effectiveness could well experience staff cuts. So, meaning, pwede nilang i-reorganize nila yung company para mag-increase ang kanilang operating efficiency. Pwedeng mag-include ng expansion or reduction in staff. Change in policy. So, basically, parang magsisimula ulit sila sa panibago. Next, dito, sinasabi lang na minsan hindi tugma yung staffing structure sa need ng mga staff and even yung needs ng user. So, parang especially yung types ng facilities or services, hindi naman or wala naman sa style ng structure, di ba makita agad yung problema. So, dapat magkatugma yung staffing structure. So, dapat inappropriate siya sa needs. Next is yung many leisure centers require managers with considerable decision-making powers and senior staff to take full responsibility in unsocial hours. Dito sinasabi lang, pinapatunayan lang lalo, dapat yung managers is flexible and skilled. Dapat if may nag-arise na mga unexpected problems, dapat kaya nilang magdesisyon kaagad. And yung mga senior staff, sila ang responsible for the unsocial hours. And kailangan din yung structure is flexible sa kung ano yung unpredictable demands ng leisure participants. Staff have a variety of duties and the facilities are open for long hours. So, yung mga staff, ay nga sinabi natin, iba-iba sila ng job description. So, magkakaroon sila ng iba-ibang duties, responsibility, and mga roles within the organization. Pero, yung nature ng job nila is to create satisfactory experiences for people in their leisure time. So, iisa lang naman sila ng nature of job. So, yun ang makapagbigay ng satisfactory experiences. So, kailangan magkaroon ng customer satisfaction. So, para magkaroon ng customer satisfaction, kailangan yung staff ay motivated and committed sa kanyang trabaho. So, hindi lang niya basta-basta ginagawa yun para lang makasahod siya, ganon. Ginagawa niya yun kasi gusto niya talaga makapagbigay ng isang memorable experience sa mga customer or guest, mga ganon. So, dapat naintindihan din nila yung mga customer requirements. So, dapat flexible sila. So, if yung staff is flexible, dapat yung organization and yung employer din. Next is the principles of management which affect staffing. So, yung mga top-level managers daw and yung mga senior personnel, sila yung nag-formulate ng policies and organizational structures. And sabi dito, yung ibang mga managers daw ay nalalagay sila sa position in existing organization na. So, kailangan na lang nilang mag-adapt doon. Kasi nga, diba, kaya nga sila naging manager is nakitaan sila na flexible sila, kaya nilang mag-adjust and skilled talaga sila. So, yung mga managers din, kahit saang level, dapat naintindihan nila yung organization structure kasi baka mamaya hindi naman na nila sakop yun, wala na sa span of control nila, is pinipilit pa rin nilang kontrolin, mga ganong cases. And also, that naintindihan nila yung mga principles. So, meron tayong mga basic principles. So, sabi sa book kasi, 3 basic principles daw, pero 4 din yung naka-bullet doon. So, kinopya ko lang yung nasa book. According to the International City Management Association, 3 basic principles of management must be considered daw in establishing an organizational structure. So, namely, unity of command, logical assignment, span of control, and authority and power. So, sa unity of command, ito lang yung so yung principle na to, parang ito yung may one boss, one mission, parang ganon. So, one mission, one boss pala. So, ibig sabihin nito, isa lang yung nagko-command, isa lang yung nag-authorize, isa lang yung nagdadirect. So, kapag sinunod mo tong principle na to, syempre, merong precise chain of command within the organization. Kasi isa nga lang yung nagko-command isa lang yung nagdadirect Pero, pwedeng magkaroon ito ng mga hindi pagkakaintindihan, kagaya ng mga personality clashes and guarding of one's territory. Kasi hindi din naman naiiwasan, di ba? Kahit nga ngayon, sa school lang, sa isang klase lang, di ba? Kapag may isang nag-authorize, siya yung nagda-direct, ganun, is meron ng, may mga di na talaga nagkakaintindihan, may mga personality clashes na parang sasabihin na, bakit siya yung nag-uutos sa atin, yung mga ganun na cases. Next is the logical assignment. Logical to, typo lang. So, itong principle naman na to, sinasabi na yung mga worker na same lang naman sila ng ginagawa. ay dapat ay maggrupo na. So, para paplanuhin nila ng maayos and ma-schedule nila in a logical order. So, kasi same lang naman sila ng ginagawa eh. Kapag wala itong logical assignment, pwede magkaroon ng duplication or overlap, confusion. So, malilito sila kung sino ba talaga gawa, kami ba, or sila na ba, mga ganon. So, lahat naman ng yon is mapupunta sa poor performance. So, dapat yung mga worker na same lang naman sila ng mga ginagawa is pagsamahin na lang sila para magtulungan na lang din. The span of control naman, ito naman yung principle. This is also known as management ratio or span of management. So, for example, dito sa span of control, sa director, meron lang limang tao, for example, manager yon, 5 manager na directly magre-report sa kanya. So, ibig sabihin, meron siyang span of control of 5. So, itong span of control, para lang to malimit yung number of subordinates na kaya lang makontrol ng manager or ng director. Kasi kapag masyado ng madami ang span of control, meron ding mga disadvantage yan, magiging ineffective or inefficient na yung manager or yung mga director. Next is the authority and power. So, yung dalawa na to madalas na pagkakamukha, pero may magkaiba sila ng meaning talaga. So, mamaya mas may explain pa to. So, sabi nga, ayun, span of control, most accurately defined siya as span of management kasi marami siyang limiting factors. So, ang example ay itong 5 dito. First is the number of people that can be supervised. So, malilimit ka kung gaano lang kadami yung kaya mo na i-supervise or yung kontrolin. Next, depending on the quality of staff and level of delegation. So, if na-observe mo na yung staff na yon or yung subordinate mo na yon is you can entrust the responsibility sa kanila, hindi mo na siya kailangan pang kontrolin or i-supervise. Next naman is the distance over which control can be supervised. So, ito yung if need talaga ng supervision or ng control, so siguro observe na lang din yung distance para hindi magmukhang parang masyadong control freak, wala ng freedom of action. Next naman, amount of time in which to exercise control. Kasi minsan, time is a very limiting factor kahit saan pa man mapunta yan. Kahit sa simpleng gagawin lang natin. Sobrang, sobrang importante ng time. So, kahit na gusto mong kontrolin lahat, i-supervise lahat ng activities or yung mga staff, gusto mo silang i-supervise, if wala ng time yung manager or yung director, diba malilimit talaga sila eh. Next naman, number of activities that a manager can effectively manage. So, if madami na kasing masyadong activities na kailangan niyang kontrolin or i-manage, so hindi na siya magiging effective, magiging, na siya, parang overloaded na masyado yung manager. So, nalilimit talaga yung mga managers. Ayun nga, yung span of management is a statement of those limitations. So, yung exact number daw ng tao na yung manager ay should control ay nakadepende sa competence of subordinate. So, yun na nga, sabi din dito kanina, if na-observe na parang kaya naman ng subordinates yung task or responsibility na yon, pwede nang hindi siya makontrol or kontrolin ng manager. And also, nakadepende ito sa manager's own knowledge, ability, time, energy, personality, leadership style, and the environment and situation in which work must be undertaken. So, syempre, tao lang din naman si manager, hindi siya, napapagod din siya, may limit din siya. So, if nalilimit yung, limited din pati yung knowledge ng manager, hindi naman porket manager is parang, na siya. So, nalilimit din yung span of control or management ng isang manager sa mga yon. Yung mga organizations with narrow spans of control, mamaya may example tayo dito. So, narrow spans of control ay may potential for good control and close supervision of staff. So, ito yung example, yung figure 23.1, organization with narrow span of control. So, bakit paanong narrow span of control? So, nakikita natin, example, itong si director is, ang span of control lang niya ay isa. Itong si deputy director. And si deputy director, 2 hanggang tig-2 na lang sila dito. Kaya narrow span of control, magkakaroon ng strict supervision. Kasi itong si director, ang responsibility lang niya na i-supervise is itong si deputy director. Kaya, strict ang supervision or yung control sa narrow span of control. Yung narrow spans of control na yon are often found in hierarchical organizations. So, ang dito, cost ng staff dito ay mataas. And also, yung distance between the top and lower levels can make communication difficult. So, balik natin dito. So, higher cost. Kasi, nakita nyo naman dito, yung staff is madami sila. So, mas maraming staff, mas maraming lalabas sa pera kasi mas maraming pasasahurin. And also, yung communication daw is mahirap between the top level, which is the director, and the assistant manager. So, bakit mahirap? Example, itong si assistant manager may gustong iparating kay director. So, di ba ang dami niya pang dadaanan? Paano kung super rush na ng gusto niya iparating kay director? So, for example, ipapadaan mo na kay manager, so naibigay na kay assistant director. So, paano kung itong si deputy director is busy or di ba medyo mawawaglit sa isip niya? So, medyo matagal talaga or mahirap makarating kay director yung communication or yung gustong iparating ni assistant manager. Kaya sinabi na communication is difficult between the top and lower levels sa narrow spans of control. Pero, if yung director naman is hawak niya lahat, for example, itong si organizations with a wide span of control, so 8 managers, director meron siyang span of control of 8. So, masyadong madami, 'di ba, yung staff na hinahawakan ni manager or director. So, ang mangyayari, malilimit naman yung efficiency and effectiveness ni manager or director. So, for example, itong si golf course nagkaroon ng problem. Tapos, ito ding si art center nagkaroon ng problem. So, parehas silang lalapit kay director. So, paano? Pag ang nangyari is nagkasabay-sabay, di ba? Minsan may mga ganung cases. Nagkasabay-sabay na nagkaroon ng problem. So, magiging overloaded tong si director. Hindi na siya magiging effective and efficient. Hindi lang naman pag-control or pag-supervise ang role ng mga director or manager. So, may mga tasks sila na sila lang yung dapat gumawa. Like the innovation, yung mga innovation ng services or product, sa kanila nanggagaling yung na yon, mga ideas na yon. So, yung mga manager, di ba, they are given empowerment, and if nagagamit nila ng maayos yun, makapag-influence sila ng positive working environment, and with that, mag-encourage ng innovation and creative thinking. So, ma-achieve nila yung organization's objectives. Sabi nga dito, innovation needs delegated authority. So, kailangan may entrustment with each other sa isang organization. And also, may freedom of action. Hindi dapat masyadong control freak ang mga manager and yung director. Next is the authority and power. So, ito yung last basic principle. So, magkaiba daw sila, pero they are often mistakenly treated as being synonymous. So, ano ba ang authority? Ito yung authority. Ito yung yung tao na may legitimate authority kasi may position siya within the organization or organizational structure. So, yung mga tao within the organization or yung staff is wala silang reklamo if ito yung nagbigay sa kanilang task or responsibilities kasi may legitimate authority talaga siya. May position siya na hinahawakan sa isang organization. So, ito namang power is much broader concept siya than the authority kasi power pwede siyang manggaling if you are perceived as a leader sa isang member ng staff. And also, if expert ka sa field na yon, so meron kang power of knowledge. So, malawak siya. Actually, itong power, hanahawakan siya ng authority eh. So, parang interrelated sila sa isa't isa, pero may difference talaga sila. So, itong lang to, explanation lang to, lalo doon sa kanina. So, yung narrow span of control, possible na, yun nga, yung masusupervise ay, masusupervise talaga ng mabuti yung mga hinahawakan nila. Pero yung assistant staff, which is yung nasa lower level, di ba kanina nakita natin, yung, wala siyang opportunity to make decisions ng sa sarili niya lang. Kasi syempre, mga nakasunod lang siya sa mga higher rank sa kanya. So, walang sense of commitment and achievement. Sa leisure and recreation pa naman, kailangan highly motivated ang mga staff. And also, may mga specialist siya. May coaches, community leaders, play leaders, parks and open space officers, outdoor activity specialists. So, dapat motivated pa naman yung mga staff, ano? Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin sa narrow span of control and sa wide span of control ay pag may disadvantage is hindi talaga mag-work. So, in real life, may mga organizations talaga na yun ang ginagamit na ganun yung structure ng organizations nila. So, kailangan lang talaga dito is yung manager maging flexible, talented, and skilled talaga para mag-work. Kahit na mahirap, kasi may mga disadvantage. Lahat naman may mga disadvantage eh. Kailangan lang talaga kailangan persistent lang talaga and skilled. So, ito, time is a very limiting factor. So, sabi ko rin kanina, di ba, time is a very limiting factor. So, yung mga manager, naglalaan talaga sila ng oras sa mga to. So, itong example na tong tatlo. Routine work which is usually delegated but must be monitored. So, ito yung mga work within the organizations na pwede na lang yung manager work pero pwedeng i-entrust sa mga subordinates or mga staff. So, ibibigay niya yung responsibility na yon pero imo-monitor niya pa rin. Next, yung regular work na yung manager lang ang pwedeng gumawa. So, yun nga sabi ko kanina, yung mga manager, hindi lang naman ang pag-control or pag-supervise ang role nila sa isang organization. May mga work din sila na sa sarili nila na sila lang ang makakagawa. Next is the special work and assignments and creative work. So, ito yung mga pag-innovate na, di ba? Yung mga new ideas na, yung ganun. Organization and staffing structure. So, yung mga managers daw, sabi din kanina natin, nalalagay lang sila sa mga existing organization and kailangan na lang nilang mag-adapt. So, ang dapat maging negotiator sila, decision makers, communicators, and understanders of a wide variety of professional and lay staff. So, dapat talaga is skilled talaga ang mga managers and flexible talaga sa lahat ng bagay. So, yung maayos na staff structure daw, ay ina-assist lang yung manager sa pag-achieve ng goals sa lahat ng organization. Pero hindi ibig sabihin good management na agad. So, nakadepende pa rin to sa manager and the staff kung paano yung flow of process nila sa organization nila. So, yung staff structure, lalo na pag hindi maayos, pwede itong maging instrument para tapusin yung isang organization. And also, yung organization structure kasi, nagpo-provide lang naman ito ng framework for management and staff to work within. So, parang basis lang ito. So, nagbibigay lang ito ng assistance. Pero hindi talaga dapat dito mag-rely kasi nasa performance pa rin ng staff and the manager, ang good management. So, ito naman yung mga several important factors sa if you consider to establish ang type of structure. So, first is yung nature of the controlling body. So, yung mga authority controlling like the local authority, charitable trust, commercial entrepreneur, and private club. Next is the aims and objectives of the organization. So, dapat i-consider mo to sa type of structure na i-establish mo. And next, the stability of the environment in which the organization operates. So, ito yung quality ng environment. So, yung response to changes ng environment. Sa i-consider mo yon sa bago ka mag-operate sa isang organization mo. The distribution of facilities, pwede siyang any facilities, devices, and system na ginagamit or useful in obtaining, pumping, storing, treating, and distributing water for agricultural, industrial, and etc. So, pwedeng localized or widespread. The financial targets, ito pwede itong financial goals. So, magsaset ng objectives for how you will spend or save money. Pwede din na ito yung mga bagay na gusto mong ma-achieve. Pwedeng short term or long term. Next is the scale and nature of the facilities and resources, if specific or if sport or art is specific or multi-leisure ba. And location, layout, and design of facilities kung compact, separated elements, nature of the service to be provided if community-based or sports development. So ito, from the scale and nature of the facilities hanggang dito sa nature of service, parang ito lang yung kanina na sinasabi natin na dapat tugma yung lahat ng to sa structure kasi baka nga naman yung mga facilities mo ay hindi naman tugma sa mga ino-offer mo na uh, services, 'di ba? So kailangan i-consider mo to pagka mag-establish ka ng isang type of structure. Next is the level of performance. So, usually nakadepende na to sa staff if top level ba or casual or formal or informal lang ba yung kayang i-offer ng mga staff mo ng level of performance. Next is the ability of management and staff and the level of delegation possible. So, kung may entrustment ba sa within the organization, kung naasahan ba yung isa't isa doon. Last is the hours of operation. So, kailangan i-consider mo pa to if open ba in long hours yung organization, yung operation, or hindi.
So, good afternoon po. My name is Gianne Justiniano. And yung first topic po ng report ko is formal and informal organizations. Sa topic na to, I will distinguish first what is the informal and formal organization. Yung formal organization, meron siyang clearly defined structure na nag-establish ng relationships and differences sa status, role, rank, and levels of authority. Aware naman tayo sa ganyang sitwasyon, di ba? Tulad sa company, may CEO, vice, then secretaries, mga ganon. And sa ganitong klaseng environment daw, which is controlled environment, meron daw rules, accepted forms of behavior, and manners are being undertaken. Sa formal organization, para ma-achieve nila yung defined outcomes, they divide the overall work to all employees in a coordinated way so that magpa-function sila as a unit or department. While yung informal organization has a much less defined structure. So, kung yung sa formal organization is clearly defined, dito naman sa informal, much less defined. And it is likely to be much smaller in size and also have a shorter lifespan. Sabi din dito, yung mga informal organization daw, in certain circumstances, are being converted into a formal one, such as when an interest group forms a club or society with rules and constitution. Like for example, yung mga taong may hilig mag-travel, kapag nagtayo sila ng club or society, tas nag-establish sila ng mga rules doon or batas, then kalaunan dito na mag-start na maging formal organization yung interest group lang nila dati. So, next. It is the informal relationships which provide for lateral communication rather than going through the channels and where two-way communication leads to improved understanding. While formal structures are required, managers should also encourage effective informal structures to foster the essential human dimension. Sabi rin dito, one of the skills of the good manager is to permit within the certain limits a level of face-to-face work which in essence bypasses the formal chain of command. Sinasabi dito na parang isa daw sa skill ng good manager ay mag-build ng relationships sa employees nila na kung saan parang hindi na muna iniisip yung kung sino yung mas mataas sa kanila or sino yung boss, ganon. So next, naniniwala daw si Nancy Foy na oras na para i-humanize yung systems natin, and when we say humanized, ito yung parang makatao or pagpapakatao. While organizations and other and the people in them need rituals and regular checkpoints, they also need information about their own work groups, their own outputs, and so on. Sinasabi dito na it is normal to check your people, pero bigyan din natin sila ng panahon para makabuo ng sarili nilang idea or makaisip and yung outputs din nila. A lot of information that can't be transmitted can normally flow informally. With complete credibility and confidentially, once people believe they are hearing the truth and able to tell it as well. Kasi 'di ba may mga sarili tayong paniniwala and opinion. Kapag narinig natin yung isang bagay, masasabi naman natin to kung totoo ba 'yon o hindi, ganun. Next. Next is designing formal structures. Forming an organization structure is like creating a structure from building blocks, the work unit or the job of an individual worker is the smallest building block in the structure as a whole. Organizing is the process of dividing up the work in a structured framework. So, sinasabi dito na forming an organization structure is like creating a structure from building blocks na kung saan yung smallest building block is tumutukoy sa trabaho ng isang worker. Kaya masasabi talaga natin na importante lahat yung posisyon sa isang company. And kapag yun nagampanan nila ng maayos, yung sarili-sarili nilang scope of work, doon mas malaking chance yung success ng isang company. Managers have distinct tasks in setting up the staffing structure. So, yung una, dividing the work or task into jobs. So, di ba, sa organizing, sinasabi dito na it is the process of dividing up the work. Dito naman, hinahati-hati yung mga trabaho and saka nila malalaman kung sino yung need nilang i-hire na tao. For example, accounting. So, kailangan nila ng accountant. Sa electrical naman, so kailangan nila ng mga technicians or electrical engineers, mga ganon, and so on. Grouping similar tasks, usually by forming sections, units, or departments. Sa pagbuo daw ng group, like yung mga departments katulad sa hotel, di ba, may housekeeping department, security, front office, etc. Kasi yung scope of work nila is somehow similar to each other so that they can also sometimes help each other. Next, specifying and controlling the relationships between the groups. For example, yung housekeeping department is may communication dapat sa front office, mga ganon. Like, yung nagmamatter lang dito is yung communication ng bawat department sa isa't isa and how they should interact with each other. Susunod is delegating authority for carrying out the jobs or group of jobs. This is normally done via chains of command. Dito dapat yung mga responsable and maasahan talaga sa trabaho nila, yung mga ina-assign dito. Specifying the authority or control over the groups which can be centralized or decentralized to varying levels. So, dito, dapat daw malinaw yung scope of work ng isang taong nasa posisyon and kung hanggang saan lang ang control niya. For example, yung sa security, taga-check lang ba na dapat sila ng mga baggages or dapat na i-greet din yung guest or sakop din ba dapat nila yung mga CCTV footages, mga ganon. Dapat clear sinasabi yung scope of work ng isang worker. In organizations like large leisure center, local authority department, theater or park, creating line and staff relationships. So, kasi yung line and staff organization ay parang, base sa pagkakaintindi ko, isang organizational charts na kung saan makikita kung yung mga posisyon, kaya katulad daw sa large leisure centers, gumagawa sila ng organizational charts para malaman nila yung chain of command and to know who are their colleagues. None. Specialization is essential for many tasks, but leisure managers and senior staff are increasingly generalists with specialist leanings. Personnel officer cum duty officer. Leisure jobs call for greater flexibility than industrial jobs. Kaya 'di ba kapag may mga hiring, kadalasan natin makikita sa requirements nila na dapat may experience ka sa specific fields. Kasi nga mahalaga daw yung specialization kasi iba talaga kapag skilled sa bagay na yon, ganon. Leisure services, which have a myriad of permutations, call for appropriate situational solutions. Kasi 'di ba, different situations have different priorities. Each area has its own identity. Each has its own budget targets, and each has its own style. Structures must be developed which meet the needs of the situation. For example, yung commercial chains such as fast food chains, they provide a standardized structure. Yes, may makukuha tayong ideya sa kanila. Ang kaso, they provide a standardized product. So, sa leisure services na nasa field ng tourism and hospitality industry, dapat alam din natin kung ano yung dapat natin i-priority depending sa sitwasyon natin. So next, organization and staff structures should not, however, be static, determined, and fixed forever. Structures must be changed to meet changing situations. Kasi 'di ba, habang tumatagal and patuloy na nag-ooperate yung isang establishment, may mga challenges na papasok diyan and na dapat i-priority at bigyan ng pansin. So, habang dumadami yung challenges or mga problema na dapat asikasuhin, mas dumadami yung kailangan gumawa nito. Kaya dapat magdagdag ng workers, ganon. Kaya nga may mga napopromote or tumataas yung posisyon kasi dumadami yung workers or kailangan nilang workers and kailangan may mamamahala sa group na yon, kaya nag-iiba daw talaga dapat yung organization and staff structures. Programs will change, staff will develop, and some will move on, and financial forecasts will alter. So kaya daw dapat estimating of or forecasting the changes should be implemented para daw ma-meet yung certain changes, and what's the good news is uh, yung staff naman is may improve and madadevelop, ganon. It is said that we can be certain of only one thing, yung change nga daw. Alam naman natin na lahat ng bagay ay nagbabago, and because change is absolute, we cannot avoid it. Staffing structure has an effect on the management of the organization, just as the activities themselves affect the program and the organization. Alam naman natin na magmamatter talaga yung kakayahan ng isang staff and makakaapekto ito sa management ng organization. Katulad lang din nga ng mga activities or programs na ino-operate sa organization. Pero it doesn't mean daw na porket mas madaming staff, meaning the better management agad. We all know naman na quality is better than quantity, and karamihan sa atin or lahat tayo hinahanap natin yung quality ba ng isang bagay kaysa sa dami o bilang nito. Staff structures should be tailor-made to be appropriate. They also need to be altered to respond to situational changes. Dapat daw ginawa or katulad sa mga damit, dapat daw pinasadya ito depending sa mga trabaho at mga concerns ng establishment at pati na din sa sitwasyon na kadalasan ay nagbabago-bago. So next is departmental structures. Historically, departmentalization by numbers was the most frequent method in the organization of tribes and armies, but with the need for specialized staff, This strictly hierarchical method is now usually confined to the lower tiers of an organization, such as the cleaning staff at a major event stadium. Sabi dito, most frequent method daw yung departmentalization sa mga tribes and armies. Pero kapag specialization na daw yung usapan like sa field natin, dapat skilled ka talaga lalo na service provider tayo. Strict hierarchical method is usually confined daw like sa lower tiers ng organization such as yung cleaning staff. Wait lang. So, to be effective, managers must divide the workload into manageable parts. The main purpose of dividing the work is to establish methods of determining section responsibilities, the distribution of authority to individuals, and the processes of delegation. The most used method of dividing work is departmentalization. That is, dividing the workforce into units and departments. Departmentalization daw yung madalas na ginagamit sa paghahati-hati ng workload. Yun nga, na kung saan dinidivide yung work sa kada department or units. Hindi din daw dapat overload or tambak-tambak yung gawain na ibibigay para ma-manage nila ito ng maayos. Ang pinaka-purpose ng ganitong method is para mag-work yung isang department as one na may sari-sariling silang responsibilidad na kailangang gawin. Next is suggested by Grossman. Excuse me. There are 4 different avenues managers can follow in creating department. So, yung una, function. These are departments in which staff are grouped according to function. For example, sports coaching, arts and crafts, and maintenance. In other terms, they are grouped according to their use or purpose, like what they are for in and an establishment, like for example, yung housekeeping. 'Di ba, group sila ng mga naglilinis or may concern sa household chores or affairs. Next naman is clientele. These departments are grouped according to the clientele they are to serve. For example, junior, youth, and senior citizens. I think the use of this type is that those departments must know more how to cater the specific clients and have more knowledge on how to interact with them, just like um, to the senior citizens. Usually kasi yung mga senior citizens mahina na magsalita, 'di ba? Or mahina yung pandinig. And yung iba naman may init yung ulo, mga ganon kasi yung use ng ganitong ang type of groupings is to cope with the needs and wants of the specific clients to meet their satisfaction. Third is geographic. Staff are grouped according to the area in which they work. For example, a large borough could have area or district departments. Pwedeng example dito yung mga company na may branches sa iba't ibang lugar. Like, siguro yung fast food chain na McDo, 'di ba, may department din na nagma-manage or nagma-maintain sa kada lugar ng branches nila. Next is process. These are usually service-giving departments and grouped according to the process used in providing the particular services, for example, an information service or counseling. Fifth, time or shift. Staff are grouped in shifts to cover all the hours that a service or facility is open. I will explain about this more later. For now, functional departments. Functional departments are a logical and time-proven approach and are the most common method used in the leisure industry. For example, Parks Department, Arts and Entertainment Department. They encourage the use of specialization and hence make for the efficient use of staff. Also, authority is vested with the managers who are responsible for the organization's major functions. So they are the ones who are in control and responsible for the major functions. Next, client and service departments. Clientele departments encourage the staff to concentrate on clients' needs. Sabi dito, staff can develop an expertise within areas of specialization. 'Di ba kapag expert ka sa isang bagay, mas alam mo yung ginagawa mo so that mas maganda yung kalidad na mabibigay mong service na kung saan yun yung kailangan ng clients. Doon sila masasatisfy. Yun yung kailangan ng utak nila or isip nila, ganon. And through that, you can give confidence to your customers kung saan mafe-feel nila na they are being served by an understanding organization. This method, however, can have its advantages. Some client groups may be difficult to define clearly. Example given, ethnic minorities. And so on. Basta ang sabi lang dito, basta daw siguraduhin na yung service giving department ay qualified and capable sa pagpo-provide ng service na specific client groups. Katulad na lang nga nung ethnic minorities na mahirap i-define. Next, geographic departments. The advantages of geographic departments include decentralizing the service nearer to potential clients and placing responsibility with some managers and staff at lower tiers of the organization. This gives this personnel the opportunity to take higher levels of responsibility and achieve job satisfaction. And the staff involved in the decision-making process at the call phase are likely to be aware of the needs and demands of their particular area and will be more accessible to their clients and customers. Sila yung set of department na naka-assign sa specific places and therefore may sariling staff dito and should have different managers, di ba? Na kung saan responsibilidad na nila yon as one department. Sabi din dito, the service provided is likely to be far more effective given good staff with delegated powers. This method of departmentalization, however, may require managers to have interdisciplinary knowledge that in the leisure field covers sports, arts, play, entertainment, and so on. It is also likely that there will be a degree of duplication of services if the area management office and the central office having their own purchasing and promotion sections. Geographic departments require very reliable and capable staff or because of their remoteness. Regular and closely monitoring will need to be put in place. Sa ganitong method daw, nangangailangan daw dito ng manager na may knowledge sa internal affairs ng pinakabuong company. Like, example ko dito is yung galing sa pinaka-central office or main office. Tapos ipapadala sila dun sa sub-branch, tapos magiging manager sila dun or head. Tapos sila na yung pinaka magmamanage nga mismo nung branch na yon, ganon. Next naman, departments based on time or shift patterns. These are usually at the lower levels of an organizational structure where the service extends well beyond the normal 8-hour working day. For example, a leisure center na naka-open for 100 hour per week. So, di ba kaya nangangailangan talaga or mangangailangan talaga dito ng shifting na tinatawag para ma-cover yung service na ipoprovide nito which is 100 hour per week nga. Ganon. Problems can arise over coordinating of staff with communication of information and instruction, and operationally, the handover by one shift to another can be problematical if tight procedures are not maintained. Actually, alam naman talaga natin na hindi talaga magkakaparehas ang level ng service na maipoprovide ng kada tao. Kaya daw, nagkakaproblema doon sa shifting, and one more is that it is a very expensive exercise daw, ganon. In the private sector, full staff shifts are used less. Work patterns, however, are changing, with core staff carrying out essential duties, using support staff for peak throughputs, events, and other special programs. The manager needs to understand the alternatives to develop the most appropriate departmental structure. Dapat daw marunong yung manager na kumilatis ng mga alternatives para sa work patterns na pabago-bago para ma-develop yung pinakamaayos na departmental structure. Next is line and staff line and staff organizations. So eto na po yung last topic ko. So organizational charts normally depict line organizations in which authority is passed on from the highest to the lowest levels via a chain of command, which I provided an example of it in the next slide. Later you will see. Sa line and staff organizations daw, yung mga staff personnel daw ay incorporated sa line staff. Staff personnel are frequently specialists who service line personnel. For example, financial, programming, and personal specialists. Sabi dito, yung mga staff personnel daw ay mga specialist na nagbibigay serbisyo sa line personnel like personal assistant ng director, mga ganon. Sa leisure center daw, ginagawa ng staff personnel yung staff functions nila. Kapag office hours and kapag evenings and weekends naman, ginagawa naman nila yung line functions nila as duty managers. So, eto na nga. Mapapansin nyo na may mga naka-indicate na lines tsaka staff dyan sa position nila. Yan. Line. Tas yung mga staff, ganyan. Yung mga line kasi, yan yung mga staff na nag-work para talaga sa company or nakalinya talaga sa company affairs. Meanwhile, yung staff naman, sila yung mga personnel na mainly nagtatrabaho or nagbibigay serbisyo direkta para sa mga line staff. So, eto na. Mas malinaw yung ano dito. So, ito yung functions ng line tsaka staff. Line functions, line directs or orders. Line has responsibility to carry out activities from beginning to end. Line follows chain of command. Line decides when and how to use staff for line use. Line is the doing part of the organization. And meanwhile, yung staff functions, staff advise, staff studies, reports, recommends, but does not carry out. Staff assists line, but is not part of chain. Staff always available. Staff is the assisting part of the organization. Yung line and staff organizations daw ay more flexible kaysa line organization na kung saan mas maidedetalye pa ng susunod na reporter. So, separate staff functions have advantages, including reduction in cost, an arm's length objectivity, and specialist inputs into the organization. Sabi dito, makakatipid daw kasi isipin natin kung gagawa tayo ng line department para sa isang specific na job, why not for example mag-hire na lang muna ng isang finance officer kung kaya naman niya na specialized naman sa ganong trabaho, edi mas makakatipid sa pagpapasahod ng worker. Okay, this provides service, advisory, and planning information for managers and the organization. A potential disadvantage is that staff departments tend to grow at a faster rate than other departments, leading to greater overheads. Staff sections such as finance and planning can also gather undue power and influence. In highly technical or bureaucratic organizations, line management and staff management equate to workers and staff. The nature of a leisure service organization is suited to line and staff systems, which create greater opportunities for all staff as well as line personnel to provide customer service. So, that's end my report po. Thank you for listening.
So the different organization structures. So it is the various organization structures used in delivery of leisure services fall on a continuum between a mechanistic model which is ruggedly structured at one extreme to an organic model which is flexibly structured to at other. So the different models are outlined below together in their characteristic, either more vertical or more horizontal, and more or less bureaucratic. Within the compass of these various parameters are some specific models, and four are considered briefly: bureaucracy, the pyramid, matrix structure, and hybrid structures. So dito po tayo sa mechanistic organization. So dito po sa mechanistic organization, ito po yung mga taong naka-assign na nakakapagtrabaho ng stable and simple environment. Example na lang po dito is yung healthcare, universities, and government organization. So meron naman din po tayong tinatawag na organic organization. So ito raw po yung organization na na-describe by British theorist Tom Burns. According to them, ito raw po yung one of the flexible and is able to adapt well to changes. So ang example po dito is yung Google Corporation. So dito naman po tayo sa vertical and horizontal structures and decentralization. So dito naman po tayo sa vertical. So yung vertical organization tend to be highly structured and the role of staff is strictly controlled, leaving little room for individual discretion and initiative. So ito raw po yung highly structured form from top to bottom. So for example po dito sa isang business. Ayan. From CEO to regular employees. From ano po siyang top to bottom. Ganun. So in vertical, in horizontal naman po, it is tend to be more loosely structured with fewer constraints, leaving staff with considerable discretion to define how to best achieve the overall objectives. So ito raw po yung group of people from different functional areas working together para po ma-achieve nila yung common goal nila. So sa bureaucracy, so ito raw po yung large organization in United Kingdom. Kasama po dito yung local authority, service, exhibit the culture and organization based on bureaucracy. So the pyramid. So so Lawrence Peter, a Canadian famous for coining the term the Peter Principle, whereby an individual in a hierarchy tends to rise to his or her level of competence. So the matrix structures. So ito po yung format ng workplace na mayroong two or more managers. So sa hybrid structures naman po is the delivery of leisure services call for flexibility and adaptability from different form of organizational structure will suit different situation. So ang example po dito is yung trust management, partnership, management, or volunteer management. So lastly naman po is yung the organization chart. The organization chart is most common approach to portraying organization structure. It illustrates the hierarchy, functional, and chain of command. Strict adherence to chart and family trees is not advocated, but as general framework, it helps those within and outside an organization to visualize the lines of authority and communication. Thank you.
Employment of staff and legislation. It refers to the laws that regulate the relationship between the employers and employees. Dinisign din yung mga laws dito para maprotektahan ng mga workers, employees, and the employers. The employment of staff is governed by the government legislation. The government who are responsible for all these acts. Legislation has set new standards in personal policies and in employer or employee. They create new policies between the employer and the employees. There are in the region of 40 acts of parliament which have a bearing on staff relationship and employment. Ayon din sa batas, may 40 acts of parliament na may kinalaman sa empleyado at trabaho. The new acts have undoubtedly improved the working condition of the employees in the general. It says na yung mga bagong acts is napapabuti sa kondisyon ng pagtatrabaho ng empleyado sa kahit saan man. And isa pa is malinaw din na nagpapaliwanag dito yung karapatan ng isang empleyado. Tribunals and procedural guidelines and problems of employment and staff relations are primary factor in poor public relations. Tungkol din dito kung ano yung pamamaraan nila at yung problem sa trabaho. For example is yung hindi maganda yung relasyon sa publiko, maling pamamahala at yung iba pa. Much of work carried out in the field of recreation and leisure is subject to a whole raft of act of parliament. And karamihan daw sa ginagawa tungkol sa leisure time ay nakapailalim din sa acts of parliament. And thus, dapat ay alam din ng manager ang mga laws na nagko-control sa mga issue about sa pagtatrabaho at about sa mga organization. Equal opportunities, which acts to give the authorities ng equal opportunities, is magdemanda sa korte kung may nahanap na makatwiran na dahilan upang maniwala na mayroon diskriminasyon sa trabaho, lahi or kulay, relihiyon o kasarian ng isang individual. And for sex discrimination, ito yung Act of Parliament which pinoprotektahan yung lalaki at babae from discrimination. And also in the workplace that they should be treated equal. For example, sa workplace nila, is equal lang yung treat sa kanilang Dalawa. Race relations is to prevent discrimination on grounds of race. Sa race relation is mapigilan yung pag-discriminate based kung anong lahi yung meron sila. And for health and safety. These policies which give the employees a safety workplace and require them to comply in health standards. The general principle underlying the Act is the employers, in consultation with their employees, will draw up health and safety arrangements within the broad application of the law to suit their own work areas. All employers with more than 5 employees must have a written statement covering the organization's policy on health and safety. The workplace must be made safe and pose no risk to the health of employees. Kailangan daw is yung pinagtatrabuhan is mas safe doon para sa mga employer and sa employees. Employers must give employees the information, instruction, training, and supervision necessary. So, yung employers daw is kailangan, is clear yung pagbibigay nila ng information, instruction, and training doon sa kanilang mga employees. Employees must cooperate with their employer in meeting health and safety requirements and must take reasonable care of their own health and safety and the of workers at the workplace. So, the employees daw is kailangan makikooperate sila sa mga kanilang employer when it comes to meetings na about sa health and safety requirements. The management of health and safety at work regulation. The employees are required to manage health and safety. They have to apply it to everyday work activity. These are basic steps in conducting a risk assessment. Look for the hazard. Ito yung hahanapin nila kung saan ba pwedeng magsimula yung aksidente. Like for example, yung mga sirang upuan, yung minakos ng bakal. And for the second, decide who might be harmed and how. Sino ba yung pwedeng ma-harm neto? Yung mga employees ba? And for the third, evaluate the risk and decide whether the existing precautions are adequate or whether should be done. And for record findings. And 5, regularly review assessment and revise them. Equality. The Equal Pay Act. It means sa Equal Pay Act, it should be equal on treating a man and woman and in terms of paying for their job. Kailangan is equal lang yung pag-pay ng sa mga lalaki at babae when it comes to their job. Employment Protection Act. This one aims to improve organization like small business and working life through better employment. And provide the machinery for promoting good industrial relations and give employees certain rights, like for maternity rights, rights for time of work, either paid or unpaid, for certain reasons, written statement of main terms and condition of employment, an itemized pay statement for employees, and protection against unfair dismissal. For maternity rights, ito yung isang empleyado na buntis is kahit nakalib siya is may bayad pa din siya sa trabaho niya. And rights ng isang employees na yung mag-off siya sa work for a certain reason. The 1975 Act also set up ACAS, the Advisory, Conciliation, and Arbitration Service. The Employment Act 2002 received royal assessment on July 2002. The Act is support the government's commitment to create a highly productive, modern, and successful for working parents. This employment relation is to solve problems and improve performance. Disability. The Disability Rights Commission was established under the Disability Rights Commission Act. These acts give disabled persons have rights to have a job, access to different facilities, services, and others. The Disability Discrimination Act 1995. This defines a disabled person as someone with a physical or mental impairment which has substantial and long-term adverse effect on his or her ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. In this Disability Discrimination Act, it can protect a disabled person and if they harassed by someone because of their disability. And for other acts, it affects in the industry and also for the workers. Other acts is legislation. This act helps delivering the government best value of law and it has a huge impact in the leisure activities. The Education Reform Act 1988. It gives people easier to access to basic education and they improve it. And this act is very important. The Children Act 1989. This act means that the parents should be provide their children the best care they have to give to their children. The range of acts impinging on leisure includes legislation. Ito po yung sakop ng law that may affect the leisure industry, the office premises, fair trading, consumer safety, supply of goods, public health, town and country planning, water resources, the countryside, charities, licensing and lotteries, gaming, fire precaution, football spectator. Diversity management. It recognizes that people are different. It promotes a greater inclusion of employees from different backgrounds into an organization structure through specific policies and programs. Government legislation and regulation means that organizations need to put in place a number of policy statements and action to conform with the law. These are the key areas include policy on health and safety, policy on equal opportunities, policy on disability, policy on non-harassment, policy on data protection and personal details, policy on data protection and personal details, policy on employee rights. And that's all. Thank you.
Staff selection and recruitment. Staff selection is one of the most important functions of employers and managers. Successful management is dependent on good staff. Good staff assists an organization towards reaching its goal. So, kung meron kang good staff or yung mga empleyado na maaasahan, maayos magtrabaho, they can perform together para ma-achieve yung mga goals ng isang business or company. If those good staff work together, they can overcome difficulties. They can solve problems because they are both flexible in spirit and deeds. For example, isa kang business owner. Of course, you want a team composed of good and worthy employees na maaasahan mo, that you can count on to get the job done while you focus on other things. Sabi din dito, poor staff are a millstone. They are often incompetent, lack flexibility, and create blockages in the system. They become a heavy burden for the organization, resulting in redundancies at best and ineffective organization at worst. So yung proseso kasi ng pagpili at pag-hire ng mga empleyado is time-consuming and expensive. Pero mas magiging expensive daw siya kung maling tao yung na-hired. Kaya naman, it is very important to select wisely to avoid hiring a poor staff. So, we have here the combination of methods for shortlisting or selecting staff. So, ito yung mga method na kailangan i-consider when you are selecting staff aside from standard letters, curriculum vitae, and application form. So, we have promotion internally, recommendation, headhunting, written presentations, verbal presentations, discussion groups, personality testing, agency shortlisting or recruitment, consultancy advice, and interview. Yung selection and recruitment process kasi, it is very vital for any organization para mas madali nilang ma-achieve yung mga goals and objectives nila. Kasi kung tamang tao yung na-hired, that employee will produce productive results and mas mag-i-stay siya ng matagal for that particular company or organization and mababawasan yung tinatawag na employee turnover. And then, choosing employee daw is about judging the other people, their abilities, and yung appropriateness nila for the job. Yung pagpili kasi ng tamang tao para sa tamang trabaho ay mahalaga para mas maging successful yung isang organization. Next, job description, conditions, and person's profile. Sabi dito, magkaiba daw yung job description at person's specification. When we say job description, describe the job, its function, responsibilities, and employer's expectation. So, job description, eto kung ano ba yung job title, ano ba yung location ng trabaho, kung saan ba yung working condition, kung meron bang mga machineries na gagamitin, kung magkano ba yung magiging sweldo mo, mga incentives na pwede mong makuha. So, in short, it is a detailed list of your job responsibilities and duties. Yung major concern niya is with the nature of the work itself. Yung person specification naman set out the ideal credential required from candidate to fit the job, their personal characteristic, abilities, qualities, and experience. The specification is not a detailed description of the job. So kapag person specification, ito yung mga skills, trainings, experiences, education, and other attributes na kailangan ng isang tao para matanggap siya at malaman kung fit ba siya sa trabaho na yon. So, next. Selection process. So, yung pagpili daw ng tamang tao ay magiging mas epektibo kung susundin natin tong methods na to. Kasi it was proven and successful. So the first one is describe and define the job. So kailangan, you should define your job requirements. I-describe mo kung ano ba yung mga tasks, duties, and responsibilities sa posisyon na hinahanap mo. So kailangan daw, hindi mo gayahin yung dating may hawak sa posisyon na yan. Instead, strive for improvement in that position. So pangalawa, specify or profile the person whose qualities are likely to meet the requirements of the job. So dito, kailangan tignan mo kung sino ba yung mga candidates yung malapit or na-meet yung mga requirements na hinahanap mo. Kailangan din i-describe mo kung anong katangian yung hinahanap mo, kung ano ba yung hinihingi o kailangan para sa trabaho na yon. Pati na rin yung mga tao na nagtatrabaho sa company mo. And then, third one, set out the condition of the job, including pay, benefits, and prospects. So dito, ipapakita mo kung ano ba ang mga condition mo pagdating sa trabaho na yon. Tulad ng kung magkano yung sweldo, ano yung mga benepisyo na makukuha, and also other opportunities and expectation to that job. And number 4, choose methods of communicating and publicizing the job vacancy, seeking to match the persons to the job. So number 4, mamimili ka kung paano mo ipapaalam sa public na meron kang bakanteng trabaho and how you will communicate to them para mahanap mo yung tamang tao for that particular job. And then number 5, select sensitively, carefully, and methodically. Haphazard selection can be ineffective and unfair. Probe, search, and enable candidates to express their capabilities, enthusiasm, weaknesses, and strength. Selection is choosing the right and best person who fulfills the needs of the job, the task, and the relationship with others, and who is well satisfied with the condition for employment. So, sinasabi dito na when we are choosing or selecting employees, kailangan maging maingat and masiyasat tayo. Kasi selecting the best person for the right job is not easy. It really takes time and effort for you to find that right people. And then next, selectors need to satisfy themselves on a number of matters. So as a selector, marami kang bagay na kailangan i-consider at tignan para mapili who's the best among them. So the first one, is the candidate capable of doing the job? Kaya ba or magagampanan ba niya ng maayos yung trabaho? Does he or she have the right qualities and real credibility in the field? Will the candidate fit into the organization and get on well with people? So, madali ba siyang makisama sa mga kapwa empleyado niya? Is he or she the best of the capable candidates? Is it the right person for the right job? Does he or she have the courage to do right things to be effective in meeting objectives, or just the ability to be efficient, doing things right? So in terms of difficult situation, kaya ba niyang manindigan kung ano yung tama for the benefit of the organization? If he or she a good leader, able to make decision to delegate. So kaya ba niyang pangasiwaan or maging mabuting leader, mag-take ng risk and mag-decide for the company? And is the candidate happy with the terms and conditions? Next. We're now going to staff appraisal. If staff need to be effective, if they are also motivated, they will experience a sense of worthwhileness, a value far beyond salaries and condition. Staff appraisal. So being effective staff, hindi naman nangangahulugan or kailangan na you have all the certificates hanging on the office wall. It means na nagagampanan mo ng maayos lahat ng duties and responsibilities mo as an employee. Binibigay mo yung 100% na serbisyo na makakaya mo for the company. Kaya naman, Yung mga staff, they need to know exactly what is required for them and kung paano nila ito gagawin. Because, as it says, appraisal provides the opportunity to achieve better results. So, they include writing a report on the employee which is limited by subjectivity. So, kailangan hindi bias, more focus on performance improvement. Second one is appraising an individual against specified traits such as initiative, rating an employee on a numerical or alphabetical scale, and last, a range of more sophisticated techniques. So, the appraisal is concerned with the overall performance over time. Staff are affected by the way in which they are managed. Yung appraisal kasi, it's like assessing your employees. So as a staff, di ba, you want the feeling of being valued and recognized. The appraisal system has benefits to the appraiser. The third one is objective and priorities can be clarified by two-way communication. The line manager has a means of forward planning, setting each team member individual targets. So, sabi dito, yung communication talaga is very important for any organization para mas maging effective yung flow sa company. Successful communication happens in the company when there is a two-way interaction between people, and who are those people? The employees and the management. Next, there are also managers need feedback on their own style of management, and the appraisal system should enable employees to talk frankly about how a manager's style affect their work. So, di ba, as a manager, mahalaga na nalalaman mo yung mga feedback mula sa mga empleyado mo. It is important to give them the opportunity to speak concerning factors that inhibit their ability to successfully perform for the organization. And next, there are also benefits to the organization. If organization value their employees and show commitment to them, improve performance result. Sabi nga ni J.W. Marriott, take care of your employees and they will take care of your customers. Kaya naman, if your employees feel that they are valued and recognized sa mga ginagawa nila, mas lalo pa nilang pagbubutihan, and it will contribute positively in the organization. And next, without appraisal, some key issues might be overlooked. Yung mga issue regarding employees' performance kasi nagagawan siya ng paraan because of staff appraisal. Next. The appraisers need to be someone who knows about the appraising and the job description and must be skilled in listening and dealing with sensitive issues and have the ability to review successes and areas for improvement, looking forward with confidence. So yung appraiser, dapat ma-explain niya ng mabuti sa appraisee kung ano ba yung mga kailangan pa niyang i-improve. And we have here, appraisal reports could include measurement of current duties, professional and technical competence, approach to work, loyalty, supervision of staff, upward and downward communication, interpersonal skills, achievement since previous appraisal, overall performance, and readiness for further responsibilities. So sabi dito, the appraisal should end on a positive note and an unambiguous agreement between appraiser and appraisee as to the goals and expectation between now and the next appraisal. Kapag kasi ginagawa yung staff appraisal, there is a report to be filled and i-review yon ng mga staff member and they will sign it. Account will need to be taken off the Data Protection Act. Yung report kasi na yon is gagamitin ulit in the next appraisal interview para makita kung meron bang pagbabago or improvement dun sa empleyado. So, ginagawa nila to para mas ma-motivate at mas mag-improve pa yung mga empleyado nila. Staff appraisal are largely private affairs, kept to a core group, appraisee, appraisers, and legal or personnel managers. The system must be seen to be fair, non-discriminatory, and equal. So it means walang pinapanigan, hindi bias, at ang focus palagi is yung employee performance improvement.
Hi, my name is Mae Pajarillaga and I will be reporting staff handbook, outlines, discussion, and summary of this chapter. So first, what is staff handbook? A staff handbook is useful communications document, but only if it is read, understood, accepted, and used, and as long as it is sufficiently flexible to meet changing circumstances. So, yung staff handbook daw is very essential sa mga employee dahil ginagamit yon sa pagiging communicate nila sa mga guests nila. Pero kailangan yon basahin, intindihin, at gamitin para ma-meet mo yung changing circumstances. So working by the rule book can be like working the rule, the keys of that to an organization if ever there was one. So nakapaloob din sa staff handbook yung mga rules and policies ng company na kailangan mo sundin, kaya tatawag din siyang rule book. So the information giving handbook can provide a valuable source of reference for managers and staff. So yun yung staff handbook is naglalaman ng mga information kung saan pwede kang bigyan ng source, ng reference para sa mga gagawin mong trabaho. It should welcome, introduce, inform, explain, and give new and existing staff pictures of business like friendly organization that cares about its customer, its staff, its products and service, and meets its legal obligation. So yung staff handbook na yan is parang siya yung magiging kaibigan mo pag nagtrabaho ka kasi lahat ng kailangan mong gawin is nandoon sa staff handbook. Paano ka tuturuan ka paano ka interact sa guest, kung ano yung dapat mong gawin at hindi mo dapat gawin. Next is the handbook's production should be clear, unambiguous, and authoritative. So, kailangan yung handbook ng staff handbook is clear, unambiguous, or precise siya, tsaka para maiwasan din yung misunderstanding, tsaka authoritative. It needs to be indexed for easy reference, personal, and friendly in its style, and suited for its readers, yet factual and concise. So, kailangan yung staff handbook is simple lang siya na nandun lahat ng mga kailangan ng mga informations na madali siyang basahin ng mga readers. Konti lang siya pero nandun na lahat ng mga nilalaman ng staff handbook na very important. So, sunod is the handbook is basically an exercise in communication. So, yun na nga, handbook is ginagamit for communication. It is an aid memoir for producing a comprehensive handbook drawing on the experiences and employee handbook of the Harlow and District Sports Trust and other leisure centers. So yung aid memoir, ibig sabihin nun is informal message or something usually written that helps you to remember. So yun yung staff handbook. Next is, ito yung mga 20 suggestions for improving leisure service staffing. So, guidelines for facility and staffing and structures. So, number 1, understand the aims and objectives of the organization. So, una sa lahat talaga is kailangan mo intindihin kung ano ba yung aims or objectives or goals ng organization na to. Next is yung select staff wisely and logically. Match the qualities of the candidate to the job. So, syempre bago ka mag-hire ng mga staff or employee, kailangan mo alamin yung qualities nito kung bagay ba sila dun sa job na gagawin nila. Kasi kung hindi, magiging problema to sa company mo. Next is train and deploy the way the staff are trained and deploy affect results. So, Pagkatapos mo nag-hire, syempre kailangan mo i-train yung employee mo or staff para alam nila yung gagawin nila sa work nila. Syempre mahirap na pag naka-encounter sila ng problems tapos hindi nila alam kung anong gagawin nila. So kailangan talaga i-train sila and deploy. Next is study legislation. The law affects both employer and employee. So bilang employee and guest, dapat alam mo yung mga batas na naaayon para sa atin. Kasi may mga incidents na mangyari, alam mo yung gagawin mo. So number 4, understand management principles. Recognize the limitations of span of control and use of unity of command and logical assignment. So kailangan mo daw intindihin yung management principles nyo. Alamin mo dapat yung limitation mo as an employee or staff. Tapos kailangan nyo din gamitin yung unity of command. So yung unity of command, yun yung employee is responsible to only one supervisor. Kunwari, ako ay CEO. Hindi ko pwede sagutin lahat ng members of the board. Kailangan yung chairman of the board lang yung pwede ko sagutin. At saka kailangan nyo din gamitin yung logical assignment. So number 5 is create formal structures. Provide clear lines of authority. People like to know where they stand. So kailangan kung employee ka lang, kailangan mong i-respect yung mga seniors mo. Kailangan mo alamin kung ano lang yung status mo dun sa work mo. So next is number 7. Flatten hierarchies, horizontal structures empower staff to own responsibility. So flatten hierarchy means that it promotes employee involvement. So kailangan mo din as manager or supervisor, kailangan mo i-empower yung staff mo para gawin nila yung responsibility nila. Next is permit informal structures, recognize the importance of cross-communications. So in cross-communication, it is a communication between bunch of people in real life. So number 9, construct departments and decentralize. Divide the work into units and identify functions. Identify tasks and responsibilities attached to each position. Encourage decentralization. So, pagka may staff ka or employee, kailangan mo hatiin yung work nila, tapos alamin mo yung functions ng bawat isa. Bigyan mo ng task at saka responsibility doon sa bawat posisyon na gagawin ng staff or employee. So ano nga ba yung decentralized? Yung decentralized is to move the control of an organization or distribution of function. So number 10 is start with essential staff. When opening new facilities, start with essential staff and then build up as needs dictate. The full-time staff position should be limited to immediate recognizable functions. To cope with initial additional demands, core staff should be encouraged to go the extra mile, led by the manager and use trainee and part-time staff. So, kailangan mo lang, pagka mag-hire ka ng workers, kailangan mo lang magsimula sa essential staff. So, yung kailangan mo lang talaga na staff yung kailangan mo i-hire. Kasi yung ibang example, kagaya ng ibang accommodations, hindi sila nag-hire ng HR, kundi yung general manager nila, yun lang lahat yung may, yung position na yun lang lahat yung nag-handle sa work na yun. Next is the 11, create team management. Recognize the value of team management to coordinate long hours and a varied program. So, sa isang workplace, ito yung pinakakailangan is yung team management. Kailangan mo i-recognize yung value ng team mo para ma-coordinate yung long hours and varied program. So number 12 is the use line and staff approaches. Avoid rigid line structures. Consider appropriate hybrids to meet particular situations. So ano nga ba yung line and staff approaches? So yung line staff approaches is line managers and the staff have their own important roles to play. So avoid rigid line structures. Yung rigid is not flexible. And consider appropriate hybrid means that handle requirement changes para ma-meet mo yung particular situations. Next is 13. Make conditions flexible. The complexity, hours, and patterns of use of leisure facilities call for flexible conditions which encourage initiative and do not limit staff functions. So as a staff or employee, we need also a break. Kaya pwedeng gumamit ng leisure facilities dito. Pero kapalit nun, dapat magkaroon ng flexible conditions. So number 14 is consider alternative structures. Appraise the relative value of additional different forms of community recreation management. Train and support voluntarily assistants, outreach service workers, animators, etc. and consider job sharing, consult with trade unions. So, consider alternative structures. Ito yung kailangan mong i-train nga yung workers mo, tapos i-support mo din sila. Pwede silang sumali sa outreach service workers or any activities na pwedeng gawin. At pwede din yun i-consult sa trade unions. So, number 15 is produce staff handbook. So, ito nga yung staff handbook. Ito yung very essential sa bawat employee or staff dahil nandun lahat ng mga informations na kailangan nila sa work. So, 16 is establish management information system. Use the organization structure to best effect in disseminating information and in communication. So, as sa workplace, very important na magkaroon ng information system dahil yun yung ways of communicating to each other. Next is 17. Establish an appraisal system. So, ano nga ba yung appraisal system? Ito yung nagme-measure ng employee performance and set future objectives and give staff guidance on their developmental and training needs. So, number 18 is use structures as means, not ends. A structure chart is management tool. It must be used. It must be changed to meet changing situations. So, yung structures is actions or method na kailangan gamitin at kailangan baguhin para ma-meet mo yung changing situations. So, number 19 is empower staff. Many management gurus believe that tomorrow business organization will be non-hierarchical and a wide range of talented staff will be empowered to handle resources and make managerial decisions. So, sabi nga ni J.W. Marriott na you must take care of your employees because they will take care of your customers. So, kailangan mo i-empower ang staff mo dahil sila yung magiging way ng pag-handle ng business mo to be success. So, number 20 is reward staff collectively for success. From time to time, say twice a year when excellent results or efforts have been made, reward the staff with a party, a gift, or some novel event. So, sa ibang companies, pagka may something na nagawang mabuti or something achievable yung staff or employee, may bonus silang binibigay or something. So next is discussion. First, staff are a leisure organization's greatest asset. So, ang pinaka-importante daw sa leisure organization ay yung staff. Next is to ensure profitability or variability or to reduce cost. Many organizations have cut back on staff. So, yung iba para ma-sure daw yung kinikita nila or para mabawasan yung gastusin, minsan nagbabawas sila ng staff. Sunod is, we have seen a shift to a serve yourself approach. So, merong ibang business or company, meron silang tatawag na serve yourself approach. Next is, some budget hotels operate with no reception staff or room service, and catering comes in the form of vending machine. So, yung ibang accommodation like motel, like simple lang yung accommodation nila, like ang binabayaran mo lang doon is yung room lang talaga. Next is corporate business institution and local authorities are large organizations and have departments and managers involved in recruitment, selection, training, performance assessment, and evaluations. So, yung malalaking business na talaga, meron na silang mga departments and managers kung saan meron na silang HR kung saan pwede silang mag-recruit ng mga staff nila, mag-train ng performance and evaluation. Next is yung human resource management, as it is more commonly known today as the question what people resources are essential to meet objectives of the organizations. So yun na nga, yung human resource management, sila yung team kung saan yung task nila is mag-hire ng staff kung ano yung objectives para ma-meet nila yung goals ng organizations. Next is the well-known industrialist Harvey Jones believes that staff in organization are underutilized. So si Harvey Jones nga naniniwala na yung staff sa organization ay dapat naka-utilize. Next is summary of this chapter. So this chapter has been concerned with staff and staffing structures within leisure and recreation organization. So yung kabuuan ng chapter nito ay nagfo-focus lang sa staff at saka sa staffing structures ng leisure and recreation organization. It is clear the leisure manager should understand the way in which staff are recruited, selected, employed, trained, and developed in order to maximize efficiency, bring out the best in staff, and lead the organizations toward its goal. So, kailangan yung managers or mga highest authority, dapat maintindihan nila yung staff na ni-recruit nila, pinili nila, dapat i-train nila yun, i-develop nila yun para mas maging effective yung work nila sa company or sa accommodations na pinagtatrabuhan nila para yung staff na yon is magawa nila ng mabuti yung trabaho nila sa company. Next is the manager should understand relevant legislation relating to organization and staff and the principles of management as they relate to staffing and the formulation of organization structures. So, gaya nga nasabi ko dati, na kailangan mong alamin yung mga batas, yung mga legislation na pwede mong magamit in case of situations. Next, leisure organizations deal with people in their leisure time who have variety of choice. Leisure organizations therefore need to be sufficiently flexible to be appropriate to the needs and demands of their clients and customers. Clearly, organizations such as leisure service business are more than structures and systems. Policies and strategies should come before structure. So, yung leisure organizations nga is more on people siya. Meron siyang madaming choices of leisure. And kailangan daw leisure organizations is flexible na ma-meet yung needs and demands ng customers. Kailangan din daw yung organization is malinaw kung ano ba talaga yung service business nito. Dapat meron siyang systems and structures. Pero bago syempre magka-structures, kailangan muna nila magkaroon ng policies. Next is, this book has demonstrated that leisure and recreation management require high-quality leisure managers and staff. Current leisure managers will need continuing professionals development because the leisure industry is constantly changing. Potential leisure managers need to be recruited, trained, and qualified. This is an area we now turn in Chapter 24. So, dito sa leisure industry, kailangan daw talaga magkaroon ng high quality leisure managers and staff dahil hindi naman constant yung business ng leisure industry. Palagi ito nagbabago, kaya kailangan magkaroon ng professionals development. Kailangan din makahanap or makakita ng staff na well-trained and qualified na fit dun sa job na to. And that's the end of this chapter. Thank you for listening.